Using in 2016 what you have been given. Please bow your heads in prayer with me. Gracious Lord, let the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Let the church say amen. Use in 2016 what you have been given. This morning, we will join together in John Wesley's covenant renewal service. But before we begin, I just want to encourage you to use in 2016 what you have been given to serve God. It doesn't matter whether you have been given great talents, gifts, abilities, silver or gold, $1 bill, $100 bill, $1,000 bill. It doesn't matter making $100,000 or $200,000 a year. What matters to God is whether you make good use of what you have been given, whether large or small. In 2016, as we go fishing, if we just use what we have been given, we may just have an impact on the life and ministry of our church. It was brought to our attention that in a meeting that the communion needed to have the covering, that it was getting torn and raggedy. And so Sister Shirley spoke up, and with her gifts and her talents, she is going to make those cloths and those coverings for our communion table and our communion rail, using what you have for your gifts and your talents. Brother Mark, when I said that, and we were talking about, wanting to put up a website for our church, Brother Mark stepped up and we kind of talked about it, and we do have a website, and I'll get more into that later. But I think what I'm saying also, in using what you have, sometimes we have to say what we need so people will know how they can use their gifts and talents to support us. If they don't know, they can't use them. They can't help us, so we can't just sit on what we need, talk about what we need. We have to let somebody know what we want and how they can use what they have to serve God and make an impact on the life and ministry of our church. I take, for example, when Jesus was at a wedding and they ran out of wine, his mother told the disciples to do whatever Jesus told them to do. Well, they took 6 stone water jugs, filled them up with water, and Jesus turned the water into wine. That was Jesus' first miracle. No, we are not Jesus, but we can fill the empty jars up with water. And we can bring about what would appear to be miracles to someone who is in need. Each of us should use whatever gift we have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace. The Bible tells us in 1 Corinthians, the 12th chapter, verses 4 through 6, that there are different spiritual gifts, but the same Spirit. And there are different ministries and the same Lord. And there are different activities, but the same God who produces all of them in everyone. So when we go about doing ministries and having activities, we still must keep in mind when we're doing these things that we're all serving the same Spirit, the same Lord, and the same God produce all of what we do in everyone. Therefore, I can't say, or you can't say, I don't have anything to give. if something is given to you by God, you still have it. You don't lose it. If you have a friendly, outgoing personality, it doesn't disappear. A comedian is always a comedian. Someone with leadership skills don't just lose them. They transfer their skills from one position to another. I'm about to close. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a minister. Dr. Martin Luther King was a great speaker. Dr. Martin Luther King was a dynamic leader. In 1964, Dr. Martin Luther King received a Nobel Peace Prize for his dynamic leadership of the civil rights movement and steadfast commitment to achieving racial justice through nonviolent action. He took his God-given gifts and talents and used them to make a difference in his ministry, in his speaking, and in his leadership. Church, we too can make a difference with what God has given us. Again, we don't lose it, but the problem is we may just not use it. Let me say it again. We don't lose it, but we may not just use it. All of us sitting out there, we have a gift. We have talents. You know, some of us have a gift of gab. Well, use it to go out there and make disciples for Jesus Christ. You know, some of us like to sing. Well, sing a song. Go out there and stand in front of the church and just sing. I mean, somebody might think you're like crazy, you know, but guess what? You're bringing attention and letting people know that, you know, the Lord is in you and you are letting the Lord out of you through you, whatever it is that you do. Amen. You know, when you're in a grocery store, you know, you never know who you see. Mark and I was in Costco's and we saw Gina's brother, you know, and he immediately knew, he knew who I was. You know, Mark and I was there doing something for the church. So immediately he knew if he saw Mark and me in Costco's, we had to be doing something for the church, unless Gina has sent us out shopping. But amen. But you know, people know when they see you and they understand what it is that you're doing and who you are doing it for. So my brothers and sisters, I encourage you, and it's a short sermon this morning because most of the meat that we need is in the John Wesley's renewal covenant. So my brothers and sisters, I encourage you to use your gifts and your talents and your abilities in 2016 to make a difference in the life of a man, in the life of a woman, in the life of a child, in the life of a family, in the life of your community, in the life of your church. Be it big or small, make good use of what you have been given. You are required. It's not an option. You know, it's not an option. You are required to put all of your gifts and talents to good use. So in 2016, stir them up. You know, put some fire under your, stir them up. Stir everything up. And 2015, church, was a good year, and I'll tell you more about that as time goes by. But 2015 was a good year. 2016 can be a very good year. We must each use our unique gifts, talents, and abilities and go fishing in 2016. We all can start, and this is a start because I don't know how many people really know this. And I was talking to someone and we were having a conversation, and I don't know how many people know this. But when you're out there talking to folks, tell them, when you're meeting and greeting them and you have a conversation with them, tell them, we belong to a multicultural church. We belong to a multicultural church. And maybe that's why the doors are not, open and they're not coming in, because they think it's one race or another race, and it's United Methodist, so we know what United Methodist is predominantly for. But guess what? We are a multicultural church, and there's not that many of us in New Jersey that has attend a multicultural church. That's a plus for us, because we got a lot of blending here. We got a lot of cultures here. We got a lot of things that we put in a melting pot. We can come out and do some good stuff. Amen. You've been doing it over the years, but let's look at that as we go forward. Sister Jessie was telling me that at the bunco, she was telling her friends, and they all over the place, riding on this bus here and there, and her and her husband. And she was telling them about the bunco. And they were like, well, but I'm going to be honest. They were with Sister Jessie. They know Sister Jessie is black. They see it. Sister Jessie say, well, come to my church. What do you think they assumed that the church was? Let me hear you. Don't be shy. Black. A predominantly black church. So you know what Sister Jones did? She pulled out her iPod and she said, hey, look at the church. Look at the things that we do. And they was like, you know why? Because they saw a multicultural community. And guess what? They were here, and what they want to do again, sister? They want to come back. They had a good time. That's a door opener, an eye awakening. So maybe we better put a sign out there or something. I don't know. But we got a lot going on up in here. Look at yourselves. Look at yourselves. Look at yourselves. Amen. We got a blending going on. So we can use these gifts and talents. But most of all, this year, just start telling everybody, make it a part of our conversation. We're in a multicultural. We have a multicultural congregation. And guess what? All are welcome. All are welcome. Let the church say, amen. Amen.